Get 15% off a set of BrakeMess Select, Select Pro, or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors now at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 24th edition of Talkback. Talkback this morning is brought to you by our friends over at Phillips Janitorial, both residential and commercial, meaning they'll clean your home and your business. No job too big or small for them. You can trust them. 100% satisfaction guaranteed at 406-260-6617. Phillips Janitorial. Also brought to you by Y West Storage out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. Need things stored? Well, just give them a call, 406-510-0590, because at Y West, they're making room for you. 123 Seamless Gutters, family-owned and operated, offering gutter guards, repairs, and cleanings, protecting the foundation of your future. Their number, 406-240-2669. And by Harrington Surgical Supply, you can feel confident in Harrington Surgical Supply's discreet and knowledgeable guidance on a multitude of products and medical supplies.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Hey, good morning once again, everyone. Peter Christian here. That is Mr. Nick Christensen. Good morning, Mr. Nick.
Good morning.
And we have open phones for the first hour. And the second hour, we'll be hosting Dr. John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center. He'll be joining us in the studio and taking your phone calls. But right now, Buck has called to get in first on open phones. So, Buck, good morning. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, you can tell I was a bit eager, I guess.
It's okay. I'm glad we're glad you called.
I'm talking to a pair of news guys, a pair of journalists, am I not?
Well, we hope so.
Well, something, and I led a cloistered life, so perhaps this is just my view of things, but I had a neighbor whom I see often. He asked me if I had seen on a regular broadcast, That's All I Have, news, and maybe he asked because he hadn't seen it. But he gets a news feed, like maybe a Reuters or an AP, he didn't say, but on an app. And as of the 18th, so there's time differences for things in Europe and Asia, obviously, maybe the day before, there was a news feed item that the Ukrainians had hit a munitions storage north of Moscow. And the explosion registered a 3.5 on the Richter scale. Now, since that, maybe it's good that I had to wait for open lines, because in the meantime, since last Wednesday, there have been 2 more of those events. And I have not seen it any place, though, on the news that's available to me.
Okay, I'm looking at it right here. I've got...
my question is, have you guys seen any place, the news feed doesn't seem to get down to what news stations I have. To me, it's more important than where Harris or Trump are having their latest campaign stop.
Right.
To your knowledge, has it made it out kind of publicly rather than just the news feed?
Well, I'm looking at the websites of Forbes, CNN, and the New York Times, and all of them are saying that Ukrainian drones just blew up 2,000 tons of ammo. The CNN headline says Ukraine claims to have destroyed large Russian ammo dump. The New York Times, Ukraine strikes 2 more Russian munition depots.
Okay, but have you... I guess my question is, the feeds have it. Maybe I don't get CNN. It didn't show up on CBS. I didn't hear it on KGVO. The local 8 channel also has Scripps News affiliated with it. Well, Not even on the Chiron did I see it.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the dates of these. The Forbes story was 3 days ago, as was the New York Times story, and the CNN story was actually 6 days ago. So it may have occurred, during the weekend and didn't make the regular newscasts. I don't know. That's but thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, that was my puzzle. It sure didn't get much coverage, considering to me it's a pretty, set of important events compared to little everyday campaign events and so on. That was all that bothered me.
Yeah.
If my neighbor hadn't told me, I wouldn't have seen it at all. So thank you for listening.
You bet. And it says, and then I went on down further to NBC News, and it said Ukraine drone attacks Russian ammo depot in Toropets. And so, there you go. There are lots of reputable news organizations who have covered that story. But thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. And with that, we're up against our first break. So now everybody knows. All right. 721-1290 is our number. It's open phones from now until 9 o'clock. And then we'll be visiting with Dr. John Lott. So let's get those phone lines open, whatever might be on your mind this morning. It's 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. Coming right back after this.
Dennis Bragg with your forecast update. More sunshine Tuesday as we begin to see the effects of the short-range high pressure bringing back summer temperatures, at least for a couple of days. Highs just over 80 degrees in most locations, then all the way to the mid-80s on Wednesday, possibly as warm as 90 east of the divide. Winds will pick up Wednesday afternoon, though. That might cool us off just a bit with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Then it's back to sunshine, a few clouds, highs in the 70s, and the upper 30s to mid-40s overnight through the weekend.
Hey, we're back. This is Talk Back. What's on your mind this morning? It's open phones until 9 o'clock. Then Dr. John Lott will be joining us here in the studio. Phone lines are lighting up, but Diane is waiting very patiently. Diane, thanks for holding, ma'am. What's on your mind?
Thank you. I was just wanting this kind of more of a comment and a little bit of a rant than then a question.
Rant away.
Rant away. This just has to do with the way the news, generally the news is covering the situation regarding Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I noticed that, for instance, on the news this morning, the world leaders are all, grabbing their pearls and clutching pearls and worried about, all-out war, which is, legitimate, totally. But the thing that really annoys me is the way they're covering this, because they keep referring to Israel's essentially aggression into Lebanon, and as if Israel started all this, whereas Hezbollah has been firing into Israel for months and months and striking Israeli targets in Israel. And this is their response. Now, however you want to rate the response is one thing, but it just really annoys me, and because it's hard for the average person to put on their critical thinking skills caps when this is what they're being fed on the news. So that's my rant.
Well, that's okay. I understand exactly what you're talking about, because in just less than a month, they'll be looking at the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th brutal attack, vicious attack, without warning, that came and killed hundreds of Israeli citizens, and it was basically the declaration of war by Hamas on Israel. And when Israel responded, all of a sudden they're the bad guys. That's a tough one for me to understand as well.
Well, thank you for letting me go on about it.
Well, that's why we have open phones, and that's why we appreciate you taking advantage of it. And thanks for bringing that to our attention.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day. And Mr. Wingnut is standing by. Mr. Nutt, good morning. It's open phone, sir. What's on your mind?
Oh, good morning. I was going to call about another topic, but regarding Ukraine and the airstrikes and the ammo dumps, it's one of the marvels of technology and news. Is personally, I track what's going on in Ukraine on Telegram and X. And on YouTube, using selected sources. There's also a lot of garbage out there, but in Russia for quite some time, quite effectively. So there are other when the news comes on at the top of the hour on KGVO or one of the other stations, ABC or Fox or whatever, I run to turn it off because I just don't trust what they say.
Okay,
and that's just an individual preference, but there are reliable or tailored sources that you can listen to. But the main reason I called this morning had to do with Mr. Eric, who called, was the guest for a couple hours last week.
Mm-hmm. Eric Stern, yes. He was a Democratic strategist, and he's retired now, but he was kind enough to come on and share some views. But go ahead.
Well, the topic of Senate Bill 96 came up, which had to do with payments to black and and Jeff called in and said it's, really just kind of a backdoor or surreptitious way to give reparations. And, though in essence, I think Jeff was correct about that, the larger issue is that it really violates the Civil Rights Act and the Constitution. As far as, all men are created based on race, which is even more reason why that bill should have been opposed. And secondly, I found it remarkable that Eric he definitely needs a civics course, because he kept saying that, the majority of the people in Montana believe in pro-choice, or the majority of people in the United States believe this. And that's not the way the country works. As Cody mentioned, there's a definite difference between a republic and a democracy. And in our country, the majority doesn't rule. To take an example, back in slavery days, it would have been fine to have slavery. So it's just not the way that we don't operate as a democracy. It isn't mob rule here, because so that's why I called this morning. I called in when he was on, but I was the first not to get in. So.
Okay, well, there were a lot of calls, and we appreciate you hanging in there, though. And thank you for holding, even though you didn't get a chance to get on. We appreciate it, sir.
That's fine.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. Get Steve on the line. Good morning, Steve. What's on your mind, sir? Thanks for calling.
Hey, good morning, Peter. Hey, I was thinking last night after your guests yesterday about something Jeff said in follow-up to some comments that I made yesterday about how these folks, and really it doesn't matter whether they're Republican or Democrat, quite honestly, but they come on your shows and they talk about these initiatives they have to reduce property taxes and income taxes so that folks like you and Nick and I and the rest of the listeners can keep more of our hard-earned money. The reality is what those guys proposed yesterday would do nothing to curb actual spending at the city level. And in Missoula, we know that's a huge problem. I think yesterday we heard from yourself, from them, and we've heard it numerous times from the governor and others, right? The city spends a lot of money. Can we agree on that, Peter? The city spends a lot of money.
The city does spend a lot of money. So does the county, and they come up with budgets, and then it's up to the electorate to either keep the people that set the budgets or to vote them out and put other people in there.
Well, let me get to that in a moment, because that's not true. But
okay, so our system of government has changed then. I didn't realize that. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, sir. But let me. No, that's all right. Let me give you an example of why that's not true, and you can decide whether I'm wrong or not. So, but going back to the main point of the call, these folks come on, they say, hey, the city spends a lot. They need taxes to spend that to meet that budget that you've mentioned. The issue is, though, is that the more they spend, the more money they need, right? So the more money they commit to spending, the more money they need. And so, therefore, they create this endless loop. And these guys, like your guest yesterday, come on these shows, never present solutions to curb the spending. And Jeff called it out perfectly. These guys spend all this time defending their careers rather than the actual point I was making yesterday of, like, you don't present solutions to spend less. If you spent less, you would need less, and folks could be taxed less, or their money could be returned to them. And their answers is much like I hear on the show all the time. Oh, it's so complicated. Everything is so complicated. And when they get pressed by other callers on that issue, they say, well, we can't influence the city. we can't tell them what to spend money on or how to reduce spending.
No, sure we can.
And I just find, well, right, and here's a way they could, right? And I find it so arrogant and so just so a lack of really critical thought of themselves of how they could do that. But one of the ways, and this is just one, is they could present a bill across the aisle that would limit city spending to say, I don't know, no more than 3% or whatever we agree on as a rate of inflation. And perhaps maybe even, hey, we can't spend money on some of these superfluous items like climate change personnel salaries, which cost $100,000 a piece at least, plus benefits. Right,
and then those proposals go to a vote with the city council, or eventually a vote to the people. If it's presented in a form that can be on the ballot, then the people can either vote for it or against it.
No, sir. I'm talking about at the legislature.
Oh,
right?
okay.
They could produce a bill that said, hey, cities cannot spend more than this. Or they could produce a bill that said, when the government has revenues that exceed the budgets it needs to operate, those funds are returned in some sort of pro rata form back to the taxpayer.
Sounds good.
They could do things. My point is they could do things that would decrease the spending at the city level, and therefore the city would need less taxes and put less pressure on folks who are trying to feed their families. That's thing one.
All right.
Well, to answer your point, hold on, just real quick. Let me just give you this example.
We're 2 minutes past a break, but go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish.
You always say this. If you don't like it, kick them out of office. Elect someone else. Well, let me give you an example where that did not happen. So the Johnson Street shelter in 2022, November 9th, 2022, the city voted no for funding against the Johnson Street shelter and all the other services in that emergency crisis levy of $5 million per year. The city went ahead and did everything in that proposed levy anyway. They put the crisis team in with the fire levy. Then they just decided to fund the Johnson Street shelter once the ARPA funds ran out with MRA funding. And now they've approved a 2-year budget in the last council meeting. So we try to hold these folks accountable, Peter, but unfortunately, they choose to do whatever the hell they want anyway, despite the will of the voter. 55% of Missoulians said no to that. They went ahead and did it anyway, sir.
All right.
Please recognize that example. I know you love that example of vote them out. Oftentimes, we're left powerless, and we need help from folks like you to hold people accountable.
Okay, thanks for the call. We're way past the break. We're going to come right back. We have Dave and Harry both standing by. Appreciate the comments. We're going to come right back with what the heck Nick, can I do something about that? I'll do my best. I'll get on it right away.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's all up to you, Peter.
It's all up to me. All right, I have become dictator for life. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to come back. God help us. We're going to come right back after this. We're back on Talk Back. All right, it's open phones until 9 o'clock this morning. All right, let's get right back to it. Dave and Harry are both waiting. Dave, you're up first, sir. What's on your mind, please?
Yes, as a student of history, a lot of history is wars, and generally speaking, wars end when one side decides that it can no longer win, and the other side says it's better to have compromise and have peace than to keep on fighting. And as far as Putin goes in the Ukraine war, Putin thinks he can win. He thinks as long as he keeps at it, he will win. And until the other side, Ukraine and us, the West decides that we're just going to let Putin slowly but surely win the war. He'll keep on going.
Keep taking little tiny bites, tiny bites until he gets all that he wants. Right? Okay, go ahead.
Right, and the best way to stop that is all in. Give Ukraine everything and everything they need. Patriot air defense systems, a dozen of those, Lend-Lease, all the military equipment, and convince Putin that maybe it's better to compromise and quit this war than to keep on going because he can't win it. And that's the way to end wars. Now there are always exceptions.
Let me ask you this: do you think that Putin is a reasonable enough man or human being or a political leader to get to that point that say we can't do this anymore, or is it going to take an uprising of his own people? And can that happen in communist Russia?
If he can present this as a victory, and he took a little bit of Ukraine and presented it as a victory, the people, and sell it to his people, he'll stay in power. If it's presented to him that he's failed and all these people died for no reason, well then he probably will fall, because the Russian people believe in power. They want a powerful leader, and if he is not presented as powerful, then he will fall. As far as the Israeli war goes, both sides choose fight. It's better to fight than to compromise. And so the war goes on. It's been going on since 1947, and they choose to fight because compromise is something that they don't want to do.
All right, Dave, thanks for the call. And with that, we're up against a break. Harry is waiting very patiently. Harry, thank you for your patience. We're going to get to you in just a minute. Jeff is also waiting. Hey, it's open phones. Whatever might be on your mind this morning, if you want to continue on this track, or if there's something else that's on your mind. That's why we have open phones for you to talk about it. 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309, or you can use the KGVO app. We're coming right back.
Today on Hey, Dennis Bragg with your forecast update. More Sunshine Tuesday as we begin to see the effects of this short-range high pressure bringing back summer temperatures, at least for a couple of days. Highs just over 80 degrees in most locations, then all the way to the mid-80s on Wednesday, possibly as warm as 90 east of the divide. Winds will pick up Wednesday afternoon, though that might cool us off just a bit with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Then it's back to sunshine, a few clouds, highs in the 70s, and the upper 30s to mid-40s overnight through the weekend.
Thinking about retirement? Make sure My Social Security account is a part of your plan. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can find out if you're eligible to receive benefits, compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates, view spousal benefit estimates, and more. Plan for your future. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
All right, welcome back to Talk Back. It's open phones on this absolutely glorious day. A beautiful, finally, a clear blue sky, and it's just nice to look at. Harry, thank you for holding, sir. You are on Talk Back. What's on your mind, please?
Yeah, good morning. First off, just a few comments on the earlier callers. First off, is that we are a constitutional democratic representative republic, and the majority does rule, except for there are protections against, for the minority too. So, but overall, the majority does rule. That's how it works, and
it takes a majority to elect someone. That's for sure.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's also like you're talking about the city. But one thing, these guys complain. They complain to the wrong people. I mean, these guys they were state representatives. They're not city. They're not county.
Exactly.
And so if you don't like what the city is doing, I mean. Also, they're also in the minority, so they do, and if you want to complain to the Republicans, because they're the supermajority, so if you want them to do something, they're the ones who really complain too. But even that, you don't want the states telling the cities what to do. That's like having the federals telling the states what to do. I know if the Republicans are in charge, they like it. That the state, and they like them telling a Democrat in the city what to do. But if it was reversed, they wouldn't like it. So, but that's just comments. But what I really call in for was
okay, go ahead, go for it.
The Springfield thing with the dog eating Haitians.
Oh, yes. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but that to me that really actually sort of takes the mask off what people really they always kept saying. These people kept saying, no, we're not against immigrants, we're against illegal immigrants. Well, these guys are legal immigrants, but they're still against them. So I mean, they're in the fact they just don't like immigrants, period. I mean, they can say, well, the other ones, they were all legal, so we don't like them. But now they got these legal immigrants. Oh, we don't like them either. So I mean, it actually tears the mask off, and they just don't like immigrants.
So are you saying if I should use the R word? Are they racist, or is it just what?
I'm sure race has something to do with it, but it's more of just a xenophobic, we got ours, we don't want nobody coming in and taking ours type thing. I mean, it's a natural thing. We've always had it. I mean, you look through the whole, Italians were hated when they came over. Irish were hated when they came over. Chinese were actually precluded from coming over. They had a whole law against them coming over. So it's always been a thing that this nation, we sort of falsely claim, we accept all the people. No, we have, we sort of begrudgingly accept people after they've been here for a while. But it's even here in Montana. I remember when the Hmong came up. There was a big hullabaloo about them. I mean, it was like, oh, geez, and they're supposedly eating dogs too. I mean, and they were not that well accepted, only by some, but most people were. They were always very hesitant. There's always, these rumors about them doing this and doing that. So, we accept people, but just after we sort of kind of forced to do it, but we're not that accepting as a country. It's a natural reaction, like I say.
So
we have ours.
We are unfailingly human, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah, and that just sort of we do this pat ourselves on the back, saying how great we are, but
and the only way that you find out what people are like, right, is to actually sit down with them, talk with them, invite them over for dinner, find out when their kids go to school, if they're on sports teams, whatever, and they want to be part of American society, and it's their perfect right to do that if they're legal immigrants, if they have done everything right, and here they are. We need to welcome them because America. I remember once when America was celebrated as being what was known as a melting pot, right? So we're not all the same, and viva la différence and all that good stuff. That used to be the way the country worked, but I guess in some communities it's been abused, and they're very resentful.
Right, and it's to find out that they're human too, and it's understandable. I mean, anytime you drop a whole bunch of people in one place, it's going to cause problems. Look what happened over the Balkans, or not the Balkans, but where the oil sprouted up, had all the oil camps, when they started doing the fracking and all that over in North Dakota. They had lots of problems there because you had all these people coming in that they weren't set up for, but they figured it out. I mean, there's always there's a problem when you get a whole bunch of new people coming in, but that people figure it out. It's not a big deal as they make it out to be.
All right, man. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Jeff has been waiting very patiently. Jeff, good morning, sir. You are on Talkback. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Dan. I thought I'd hope we'd come in after a break because you get better that way.
I'll tell you what. Would you like me to take the break now? And because we're about a minute and a half away from a break, so let's just take it now, and I'll put you on hold and give you a chance to say your piece. Is that okay?
I got him on hold.
Okay, he's got him on hold. So we're going to come right back, and that's just the way it works out sometimes. We take breaks about every 10 minutes or so, and so we'll be right back after this a little early timeout.
Call 123 Seamless.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Hey, welcome back to Talkback. Open phones going on for another, 18 minutes or so. So let's get right back to it. All right, Jeff, I want to give you plenty of time to make your points, so please go ahead. I'm glad you waited. Thank you.
Thank you for the kindness. A couple of quick points. First of all, we don't have a majority rules. We have the plurality rules. Bill Clinton was elected with a majority of the Electoral College, but in regards to the popular vote, as I believe people have talked about, he only had a plurality because due to Ross Perot's interference, or I guess you could say involvement in the election. So Ross Perot caused Bill Clinton to be elected with just a plurality, not a majority. So And as regarding Patriots, putting a dozen Patriots in Israel, folks don't realize how expensive and limited a Patriot missile system is. You need not only the hardware, but the technicians for it. And we don't just have 12 batteries of Patriots sitting around that we can go, let's ship those over. They're all pretty much accounted for. And when we take one from one place, we have to, that means we have less in another. And with the way the world is, where are we going to take it from? Taiwan? That doesn't look good. Japan? Well, no, they're close to North Korea. How are we going to juggle the Patriots so we can give Israel more? It's just not going to work out really well. But I have something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and that's the whole thing about the definitions for Jedi or DEI.
Okay.
I've accused people of being cultural Marxists, and I don't use that term lightly because there is something called cultural Marxism, and it's well known and defended. The critical race theory is a variation of critical theory, and all they do is substitute one grievance group for another, and the gender studies are the same way. So it's not the conservatives saying that. It's the progressives who write books who describe all that. And then when you quote the books back to them, they go, well, no, that's not right. And as an example of that, I want to look at the definitions right here in Missoula County they used four different definitions for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But they don't use a dictionary definition. And here's my example that I'm looking at what Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of equity is lack of favoritism towards one side or the other. That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yep.
But in the October 22 proclamation that Missoula County had, they used a completely different definition developed by King County in Washington State, that bastion of conservative thought there in Washington State. And their definition of equity is full and equal access to opportunities, power, and resources, so all people achieve their full potential and thrive. That's not even close to fair and impartial, but that would be fine if it was just the one definition for equity that the Missoula County uses. But when you go out to their website, they use a third definition for equity, and that's the process of identifying and removing the barriers that create disparities in the access to resources and means, and the achievement of fair treatment and equal opportunities to thrive, which is different from the one in their proclamation. And then if you go out to the National Association of Counties, there's a fourth definition that I won't bring in. But the point is that one of the defining characteristics of cultural Marxism is that they keep changing the words. Words don't mean what you think they mean. It's a variation of Orwell's 1984.
They're the nuances of meanings. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, except it's not all that nuance.
Yeah,
it's pretty distinct. And what happens is, folks, the average common Joe or Judy out there are listening to, equity. Well, what's wrong with equity? Well, nothing's wrong with it if you're talking about the lack of favoritism. But if you're talking about identifying and removing barriers that create disparities, well, who's identifying the barriers? What are the disparities? Who's going to remove them? How are you going to remove them?
And who makes that decision?
Yes, bingo. And so when we talk about Missoula County and the city of Missoula becoming culturally Marxist, that's what we're looking at. We care about people. Well, what do you mean by care? Because you have all the elderly population we talked about yesterday with property taxes who are out there, have lived for 50 years as a married couple in a house. Now, all of a sudden, on a relatively fixed income, they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay the increase in taxes. I know you've gone through that. I've gone through that as well. It's not a trivial thing for many, many people. And for some, it's going to be very difficult. There's a family up here that I know who had to move from a house they were renting to an apartment and then had to move to a different apartment. And every time they had to downsize and they were giving stuff away, that they could no longer keep, all because rents were going up due to inflation and taxes.
Jeff, I am so sorry to do this to you. We have all of our phone lines full, and
nope.
But
you've been more than kind. I just wanted to say, let's use the dictionary definitions and call BS on county people when they don't.
Thanks for the call. Let's get Sandy up next. Sandy, good morning. You're on Talkback. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. I just wanted to quickly say that everyone's favorite redevelopment agency, the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, which is in charge of our tax increment financing, tomorrow I'm teaming up with Daniel Carlino, Kristen Jordan, and Bob Campbell to have the MRA have to come before us for any purchase that they make that's $50,000 or more. So right now, I don't believe that they have to come in front of us for any purchases that they make, except if it's a bond or a land purchase deal. So this will at least put a lot more, public eye on how the MRA spends their money. Even though the MRA board meetings are open to the public, they're just not as well known as the public as the city council meetings. So I would encourage anyone who has feelings about this, whether for or against it, to come to Budget and Finance tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I do not imagine this is going to go past committee. I don't have much hope that it will pass. But if the public comes, it might pass. So tomorrow will be the only opportunity at 9 a.m. at Council Chambers.
All right, Sandy, it's always a pleasure to hear from you. And thanks for your tireless work for your ward and for the city. We appreciate it, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone who supports me and what I do. It's hard work, but I really appreciate all the kind words.
Sandy, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Kay is up next. Kay, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi. Hi, Kay.
This is Ted.
Oh, Ted, I'm sorry.
I think Kay, hung up.
Kay hung up.
We'll go with Ted.
Okay, Ted, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, please, sir. Sorry.
Good day. I wanted to answer the geopolitics questions about the Ukraine war, because if you want to know the future, you ask me. I predict the future, and I'm never wrong. You don't ask your guests don't predict the future ever. They don't even tell anything about the future. They are good at narrating the past, and that's what they're good at, and there's a market for that. But anyways, as far as Ukraine goes, the ammo depots that were blown up, yeah, it was a huge explosion, but Russia has a 25-year supply of ammo. They'll never run out in the next 25 years. You could do that every single day. They still will never run out of ammo. From the Soviet Union built all these bombs and stuff, and they've got a 25-year supply, and they'll never run out. As far as the Patriot missiles, Patriot's a defense system. We've already given Ukraine them. They don't work. It's $1 million to shoot down one rocket. All you got to do is overwhelm them with hundreds of rockets, and then the system's overloaded. As far as the long range missiles, the ATACMS, I've already called in and predicted if you do that, you'll watch the Statue of Liberty turn into a molten pile of copper. They're going to make a statement. All right. Russia will make a statement with a hypersonic Kinzhal missile.
All right.
They're not going to mess around with the long range. The thing with the long range is it wouldn't be Ukraine hitting them. It would be the United States hitting them, or Great Britain with the Storm Shadow, or France with the Scalp. It's going to be whoever fires that is going to, I've already said, the Eiffel Tower will crumble.
Okay.
The clock in London,
Ted,
will be a pile of rubble.
You've made your point. Thanks for the call. And with that, we're up against a break. We have Rick, and then return calls from Mr. Wingnut and Dave, and open phones continues for another 8 minutes. We're going to come right back after this timeout.
Hey, Boo.
Dennis Bragg with your forecast update. More Sunshine Tuesday as we begin to see the effects of this short-range high pressure bringing back summer temperatures, at least for a couple of days. Highs just over 80 degrees in most locations, then all the way to the mid-80s on Wednesday, possibly as warm as 90 east of the divide. Winds will pick up Wednesday afternoon, though. That might cool us off just a bit with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Then it's back to sunshine, a few clouds, highs in the 70s, and the upper 30s to mid-40s overnight through the weekend.
Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, and it's been a very rockin' open phones. Thanks to all of you. Let's get Rick on the line. Rick, good morning, sir. You are on Talkback. What's on your mind, please, sir?
Hey, that last gentleman that was on, you need to have him on so he can predict what Revelations in the Bible says. Kind of a strange character. But my actual call is about shady Tim Sheehy and anti-out-of-stater Tester. Their commercials are really the Democrats' commercials hammer about the out-of-staters. And as a Montanan growing up here, we always disliked out-of-staters, whether it was logical to dislike them or like them is neither here nor there. But all the years that I've grown up here, the Democrats have always said us Montanans, we shouldn't dislike our out-of-staters that are moving in. And, you know, you get in a lot of arguments about it. But now it seems like our Democratic citizens here in Montana dislike out-of-staters as much as the locals have lived here all their life. And it's funny how times change. And I don't dislike out-of-staters. I just don't like it when they don't want to assimilate to our lifestyle, particularly in the elimination of jobs. And I'm going to refer to logging especially. And it's just funny that now that Tester's got a real fight on his hands, they'll use any excuse, whether it's a rich out-of-stater buying up land. Hey, that's what rich out-of-staters do. You know, that's what they've always done. And that's just my comment.
All right. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it, sir. And let's get Mr. Wingnut back. Mr. Nutt, we have about 4 minutes, but go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I won't take that long for sure. I originally called to try to respond to the comment that, oh, come on. Harry, and you also said about the majority rules. And then Dave, or Jeff called in and corrected that. But just to kind of illustrate that, you know, how fortunate we are that the majority rule. Imagine in the United States, we have the electoral college system. But if we didn't, and it was majority rule, that it would be the left and the right coast that would rule the in the heartland, so to speak, would be, you know, left without really a voice in the government. And that's why we elect individuals to represent us. And they may not do exactly what the majority does, but they're representative, and they're endued with a power, if you will, to make decisions to the benefit of the country. Secondly, regarding Patriot missiles, the saying is that the Patriot missile battery is like, taking out Archer, and we really need to let Ukraine have the ability to take out the Archer and not just the continuous task of taking out the arrows. And lastly, I was listening to a Mr. Tester commercial while I was on hold, and which also brought back Eric in the comments that the Republican stance is no exceptions, and that is just factually not true. And it blows me away that they can get away with saying such.
Now, Mr. Wingnut, I just want you to know, I don't know if you realize this, but about every 30 seconds, your voice cuts out for about 5 seconds, and so we kind of miss the context of what you're talking about. So I apologize for that. I don't know what end that, whether it's on your end or our end, but I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. And we have time to get. We have exactly a minute and a half. Dave, you can wrap things up for us. What's on your mind?
Yes. First of all, the United States bought the Iron Dome system for Israel, and it's the best system in the world. Not perfect, mind you, but as far as Patriots go, the whole world wants Patriots. They're anxious to get their hands on them, and we have 92 of them hanging around in the United States, and I believe a dozen of them in Ukraine wants them badly, and we could lease them to them for a short time, and they could train up on them. And that's just part of the big equipment that we should be sending to Ukraine. They want Bradley fighting machines. We got 3,000 of them in storage hanging around. This equipment would do much better ending the war in Ukraine, convincing Putin that he should stop and end this war. And it's important that we go a whole hog into sending the equipment. And as far as 25-year-old ammunition hanging around, ammunition deteriorates. It rusts, it turns into mush, and I wouldn't want to shoot a 25 or 30-year-old ammunition and a big gun. It's likely to blow up and kill people. So old ammunition is almost worthless.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, Dave. And that's we're going to wrap up open phones with that comment. Dr. John Lott will be joining us here in the studio. He's here right now. I just walked in the door just a moment ago. And from the Crime Prevention Research Center. He is, of course, located right here in Missoula. But we're going to really have an interesting conversation with John, find out about his research and the things that he's doing, and the fact that he has a worldwide reach. And he is headquartered right here in good old Missoula. So the phone lines will be open for John at 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. And naturally, we also like to promote the KGVO app if you'd like to get involved that way. We'll be back after the top of the hour news.
This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO. Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome back. It is hour number 2 of Talkback for this Tuesday, September the 24th. Talkback this morning brought to you by 123 Seals Gutters. They're family owned and operated with top-notch customer service. Get a free estimate by calling 406-240-2669, protecting the foundation of your future. Also brought to you by Wild West Storage out of the Y. 2 Smokes Way is their location. For pricing and availability, remember 406-510-0590 because they're making room for you. Phillips Janitorial offers both cleaning for your home and your business, residential and commercial. No job is too big or small for them. If you'd like a free estimate, call 406-260-6617. And by Harrington Surgical Supply, where appointments are preferred for mastectomy fittings. Custom compressions, walk-ins, though, are always welcome.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Okay, here we are. We are back. This is Talkback. Thank you for a very active and rollicking open phones. We appreciate that. And joining us here in the studio this morning, Dr. John Lott, the Crime Prevention Research Center, is joining us here in the studio. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, I know that you you travel a lot, and whenever you're coming to the studio, we like to, because those of us who never get out of town,
okay.
Share where you've been, what you've been doing.
Well, let's see. In the last week, I've been in Nevada, and I've been in Utah, and a couple weeks earlier, I was in D.C. and New York and Philadelphia. So.
Right, no overseas travels, because sometimes you go to Ecuador.
No, nothing on the near horizon.
Okay,
but I'm supposed to sometime in the near future. I'm supposed to be going back down to Chile and then to Argentina, but that's those dates haven't been firmly set yet.
Now, specifically, when organizations and government agencies or whatever invite you to testify or speak to them, what is the primary topic? Is it firearms or is it all sorts of different things?
Basically crime related in some way or another. I mean, many times it's on gun control, but it's also on policing, and it kind of just depends where it is I'm going and what the topic is.
Well, I do know that one of the things that you have been working on, just looking at your website, the crimeresearch.org, is the fact of the crime statistics.
Right.
They seem to be kind of a volleyball going back and forth, and depending on who may be in office.
Well, I have to tell you, the bias in the media reporting on crime is just driving me nuts. So yesterday, the FBI put out its annual report on crime for last year, for 2023, and the media covered it extensively. And you see headline after headline that said, violent crime fell. Sometimes it says violent crime fell for 2 years in a row. That's not really technically right. Reported violent crime fell. And we have two measures of crime. We have the FBI's data on reported crime, and then we have the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which tries to measure total crime, both reported and unreported. And so what you find is that while the FBI says that violent crime fell by 3.5% last year, the National Crime Victimization Survey indicates that reported violent crime increased by 5%. And the other thing that was weird is that, just as the government went back and redid its employment statistics to say, well, we overstated the number of jobs by 800,000.
Right.
Something similar happened with the FBI data. They went back and redid the data from the year before, which supposedly had shown a 2% drop. And instead, now they say it increased by 4.5%. But that's
a 6% swing.
Yeah, right. So that's even with their reported crime data. But so 2 weeks ago, right after the debate where David Muir made his famous statement about, correcting Trump, saying, well, the FBI says that violent crime is falling, he should have again said reported violent crime and just the FBI's measure. The National Crime Victimization Survey came out for 2023, and they showed that during the Biden administration, violent crime has increased by 55%. Rapes had gone up 42% during the Biden administration. And again, these are the total crime numbers. Robberies had gone up 63%, and aggravated assaults had gone up 55%. There's no 3-year period of time since they've started collecting this data in 51 years that there's been such large percentage increases that were there. And when Trump did his press conference, and like the mainstream media didn't cover that at all as compared to the FBI report that came out. And then when Trump gave his press conference in California the following day on Friday, he basically went through the numbers. That's what the whole press conference was, to go through the national crime victimization data. None of the media covered the percentages, except for the New York Post and the Washington Times, basically conservative type outlets.
Right.
And but the only thing that they would say is you'd have like the AP would do a fact check on Trump where they say, well, it's really not a big change that occurred, but they wouldn't actually say what the percentages were that were there, and it just cracks me up that they don't cover the numbers, that don't put the narrative that they want to say, and that is that things are getting better. And then even when the FBI corrects its own data, old data, they don't even report that, last year when we told you it went down, it really went up, even with the data that they want to use.
So, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, with that rather humorous and yet tragic type of situation, we're going to take a break. By the way, all of our phone lines are open. If you have a question or a comment for Dr. John Lott, give us a call, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309, and we'd love to get you on. You can call those numbers, or you can message us a question on the KGVO app. We're coming right back.
Summer is almost...
Dennis Bragg with your forecast update. More Sunshine Tuesday as we begin to see the effects of this short-range high pressure bringing back summer temperatures, at least for a couple of days. Highs just over 80 degrees in most locations, then all the way to the mid-80s on Wednesday, possibly as warm as 90 east of the divide. Winds will pick up Wednesday afternoon, though that might cool us off just a bit with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Then it's back to sunshine, a few clouds, highs in the 70s, and the upper 30s to mid-40s overnight through the weekend.
Okay, we are back. This is Talk Back, and I'm Peter Christian, by the way. Nick Christensen over there taking your phone calls, producing the show. And joining us here in the studio, Dr. John Lott, the founder and president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. And he's here in the studio with us to answer your questions. Now, we were right in the middle of a fascinating conversation. We'll get a caller on here in just a minute, but you wanted to add to it.
Right. Well, there's an initiative on the ballot, CI 126, which they're calling an open primary. Other states call it jungle primaries. And so you put all the candidates on the same ballot there, and people will pick either a Democrat or Republican or an independent, whoever's on there. And then the top four will end up showing up on the general election ballot. And, California has this, but the way the Democrats have it set up there is that the top two get in. Alaska already has the same rules that they have in Montana, or they're talking about having Montana, where it's the top four. And the reason is that the Democrats, when they control things, they want to just have the top two, because then many times you'll just have two Democrats facing each other. But in Alaska, for example, the reason why the Democrats have the U.S. House seat there is that when they went through this last time, 3 of the top 4 were Republicans and 1 Democrat. And so the Republicans in a very conservative state divided the vote among each other and let the Democrat get through. And I believe that's the same reason why the Democrats have tried to put this on the ballot,
especially in Montana.
Yeah, so you have a heavily Republican state, you'll have multiple Republicans on the ballot, and if they can just keep 1 Democrat there, then they'll get a lot more Democrats in the state house and other races here.
Well, and so CI 127 says it requires the winning candidate to amass a majority of the total votes, or 50%. Currently, Montana is a plurality state. This means in order to win, a candidate simply needs to receive the most votes. CI 127 would halt this practice. So that's the other one, too.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you're going to have a runoff if somebody doesn't get over 50%. So, you have Louisiana has a similar type of rule to that. But, the big thing here is just the Democrats have set it up so that they'll be more likely to divide Republican votes and win more seats here in the state.
All right, let's get a phone call in, and Kevin is waiting. Kevin, good morning. You're on Talkback with Dr. John Lott. Go ahead, please.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Lott, for taking our questions.
Thank you.
Hey, are you familiar? I'm going to go back on the reporting of violent crimes. In Missoula here, are you familiar with the Missoula City County Public Report that's available on the Internet?
I haven't looked at it. I've been mainly focusing on U.S. data the last few weeks.
Oh, okay. Well, they used to report crimes, and the responding officers, deputies, fire trucks, all the units. Right. They don't. They no longer do that anymore for some reason. But is there a reason why they don't report all the violent crimes on here? They used to, especially around the warming shelter. There used to be a area circle around there that there always be violent crimes. And I was just wondering, do they have to do that? Is there initiative? Or is there grant money that's put in place for this? And I guess as a taxpayer, I'd like to know what our rights are to have that information, that if it's public or not. And I'd just like to get your opinion of what you think, or maybe suggestions that should be in place.
All right, Kevin, thanks for the call. I believe it's purely a political decision what they go and report, in terms of where crimes occur. The data is there, and somebody could, I guess, do a Freedom of Information Act request to go and get the data and then go and put together their own website or something like that on it. But the big thing is just to let your local city councilman or whatever know what you want to know in terms of where the crimes are occurring. My guess is it was just a political decision. Maybe they thought it was bringing bad publicity to some cause or group that they cared about.
Well, considering the fact that such a report used to exist and now it doesn't, there's got to be a reason for it. Either somebody said, "Oh, it's too expensive. We don't have the personnel to keep up with it," or we don't like what it said, so we're just going to kind of let it die a natural death, and maybe nobody will notice. So I don't know.
My guess is the cost can't be that large. You could almost just set up an automated spreadsheet to go and put that type of stuff out. So, but I haven't talked to them. I don't know why they're doing it.
And that might be a good question to ask the next session of City Talk when we have them on. If that's part of the topic, well, maybe we can look into that from that perspective. So there you go.
Thank you.
All right. So other research you've been doing, especially as it affects us here in Montana.
Well, I have to confess, I've mainly been looking at U.S. type stuff with the election coming up. But one of the things that we've done recently is looking at these AI chatbots You have a lot of these that you go and you ask them a question and they'll write an essay for you or basically answer your questions about just about anything. And so we've been focusing on the answers that they've been giving for crime and gun control issues. There are like 9 questions on crime, like do you think higher arrest rates and higher conviction rates reduce crime? Or do you think voter IDs reduce vote fraud? And then we've asked 7 questions about different types of gun control issues. And we'd done that in March, and we did it again in August. And the answers, on average, have become even more liberal. All the chat bots basically give very liberal responses with regard to crime. So, you'll have basically none of the chat bots believe that higher arrest rates or higher conviction rates reduce crime. None of them are even neutral on it. So you're allowed to say, I strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And all of them either strongly disagree that higher arrest rates and higher conviction rates reduce crime or at least disagree. On things like vote fraud, they all disagree that voter IDs reduce vote fraud. You go down these things, do we have more crime because prosecutors aren't prosecuting criminals? They basically all disagree.
So what does that tell you about, who's, if you will, I don't mean to be conspiratorial here, but who's behind AI in the first place?
Right. Well, it's the same people who do things like Google News search and what have you.
Right.
You go and do Google News search, and the first stories come up are from the New York Times and Washington Post, which have a certain view on the world, and they train these chatbots on those, the same biases, weighting the same type of information that's there. And the problem is that everybody from students who are trying to write essays for schools to people who want to inform themselves about elections to even reporters, I hear, go and use this to go and help them write their news articles that are there. And so
they're being advised/herded maybe in a certain direction. Anyway, so we're going to come right back. We have Ed waiting to visit with you. Our guest here in the studio, Dr. John Lott. He's the president and founder of the Crime Prevention Research Center, which is headquartered right here in good old River City. And so we'll come back, and several phone lines open. If you have a question or comment, we'll be right back after this. Hey, we're back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And Dick Christensen is taking your phone calls. Joining us here in the studio, Dr. John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center. Just got a text from Sandra Vasica of the Ward 6 City Councilor, and she asks, and I quote, what 911 details did the caller want to know? She said, I missed part of that, but if you let me know what I should ask Chief Collier, she said, of course, Chief of
Police. Wanted to know where the location were for all the crimes.
Yeah, where the locations were. I asked Chief Collier, and she said, I can try to reach out to him. So,
that's
Sandy,
great. Boy, you guys are such a powerful station here.
We try to get things done. All right. Let's get right back to the phones and say good morning to Ed. Ed, good morning, sir. You're on Talkback. What's up?
Yeah, good morning. Talking about this local crime, I'm looking at the Missoula City County Public Report. It gives the daily calls for various things. And here's just a list: harassments, vandalism, accidents, suspicious activity, assault, and fraud. That's just the first few on there. I do it to look south of 39th because that's where we live, and I want to see if there's crime going on there, and it's actually pretty crime-free. But in any event, this comes out daily. So
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Green dots for all the calls.
Right.
I don't know if those are 911 calls or whatever. But in any event, there is some information there available. And you get over to Walmart there, and there's always shoplifting, illegal camping in the city, things like that. So take a look at that sometime.
You bet. And it's very easy. I just typed in exactly what you said, the Missoula City County Public Report. If you just type that into your search engine, it'll pop right up. So if you're curious, you can spend as much time as you want going through that. And again, the green dots are interesting because if you hover over each dot, it tells you exactly what's going on there. So, yeah.
And where, not the exact address. It's got, if it's 700, they'll say 7XX.
Right.
Certain street, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for the call, sir. We appreciate that. Thanks for letting us know about that. All right. Sure. I think we have time to get another call in before we take a break. And thanks, Ed. And let's get Sue on the line. Sue, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi. Good to hear from you.
Hey, Peter. Yeah, I heard your guest there say that CI 126 was a Democratic issue, and actually it's very bipartisan. And one of the people who is behind it is Senator Frank Garner. He's a Republican, and I think a lot of folks just think that we need a choice between far-right conservatives primarying Republicans who maybe want to vote for Medicaid expansion, or maybe want to vote for like poor Mallory Stromswold, who had to leave because she was shamed by the Republican Party, for representing her constituents and not falling in with the party line. I think that it's a very bipartisan issue, and people just want to have a better choice. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, we're glad you called, so go ahead.
Yeah,
Dr. Lott.
Yeah, look, you can compare the open primaries, so-called jungle primaries that they're proposing here in Montana to California or to Alaska. And, there's a reason that Democrats benefit in California from having just the top two make it through. There's a reason, you can try to convince me otherwise, but I think it's pretty clear that when you have the top four that are going to be there, you're more likely to have three Republicans, maybe you have two Republicans, but just one Democrat that's going to be making it in there. And that's going to divide the Republican vote in heavily Republican areas and make it more likely that Democrats are going to win. Now, maybe you think that's good, and maybe, you have some relatively liberal Republicans that will think that that's good. But I'm saying on average, it's going to be helping the Democrats. You can see what happened in Alaska. Alaska has had a Republican congressman for God knows how many decades that are there up until this last election when they instituted these new rules. And you had three Republicans running against, including Sarah Palin, running against one Democrat there. And the three Republicans divided the vote that they had among themselves, and let the Democrat win.
All right, with that, we're up against a break. We're going to come right back. We have Jeff and Rick both waiting to visit with you. By the way, our guest here in the studio is Dr. John Lott. He's the president and founder of the Crime Prevention Research Center, which is headquartered right here in good old River City. And his website is crimeresearch.org. We appreciate him being with us this hour. We're going to come right back after this. It's time for... Hey, we are back on Talkback. I'm Peter Christian. Nick Christensen over there taking your phone calls on the phone right now, in fact. And we have folks waiting. So who should we get to?
You have Sue.
Sue, let's get back to Sue. Sue, good morning. You are back on with John Lott. Go ahead, please.
Well, sorry for calling back. I just heard your response, and I'm just wondering, we still have two parties in the state, and it sounds like you just want all the Democrats to not be in the legislature. You just want Republicans to win, and that's not a real fair system. It's not really a democracy when one party has a majority, and that leaves the voice of Democrats or independents out. And when independents vote in our primaries, they can't vote because they're not a Democrat or a Republican. So I think the CI 126 issue, I was an election judge, and a couple people said to me, well, why do I have to vote strictly Democrat or strictly Republican? I want to vote for the person, not the party. And I'm just wondering if according to what you're saying, you just think that Republicans should have a majority and Democrats should just go away. And
that's not true. All I'm saying is that the outcome and who's pushing it and why they're pushing it. But look, you talk about democracy. If you live in a conservative area, you're going to have a lot more conservatives winning than you're going to have liberals winning. But look, there are other changes they could make. If you want independents to be able to go and vote in primaries, there are plenty of states that allow independents to go and vote for primaries. The point is that this has an unusual rule compared to other jungle primary states like California, where they only have the top 2. Why do they have the top 4 being proposed, making it into the general election? And I think it's pretty clear what impact that's going to have. Now, you may think that's good. You may think that it's good that it's going to make it so that Republican candidates divide the vote, so Democrats are going to win races where they're in the minority. But, normally democracy talks about the majority gets to decide. And if you live in a heavily Republican area, you're going to get more Republicans. If you live in a heavily Democratic area, you're going to get more Democrats that are there. But, you want to set up a rule here so that minorities are more likely to win elections. That doesn't seem like democracy to me.
Well, one thing I do know, because I've traveled the state of Montana this last year for Jesse Mullen, who's running for Secretary of State, and I do know that in a lot of counties in Montana, there's only one choice to vote because Democrats don't run in eastern Montana and in some places in western Montana. So if you want to vote for like a Democratic person for county commissioner, for example, in the primary, you can't do that because you have to vote straight Republican or straight Democrat. So a lot of people are frustrated about that because they'd like to vote for this Democrat for county commissioner.
Well, then there are other changes. There are other changes you could make. You could make it. I mean, there's some states where you can re-register your party affiliation that day, and then if you decide you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you can vote in the Democratic primary that day, or you can vote in the Republican primary.
We don't register our party affiliation in Montana.
Okay, I'm just saying there's states that allow you to do that type of thing. So you look. There are different rules that are there.
I'm not talking about other states. I'm talking about Montana.
I'm saying there are rules that will accomplish what you're saying you want to accomplish without having to have the top 4 vote getters go into the general election. You can have it so that people can go and decide right when they show up at to vote what parties' primaries they want to vote in. You can let independents do that. There are lots of changes that you can make that can accomplish what you say you want to accomplish without tilting the field so that minorities are more likely to win the general election.
But I guess what I'm saying is that changes need to be made.
Well, fine.
We do need to make changes.
Fine, then propose.
And that's why 126 and 127 are a good thing.
No, but I'm just saying.
And the voters get to decide that. So go ahead.
I'm saying that you can accomplish what you claim are your goals without having to have all the other things that are in these initiatives that are there. You can have that without having to have the top 4 vote getters get into the general election, right? You can have it so people can go and show up that day and vote in whatever primary they want.
But that's not how it is now.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. That's why we need to have
I don't know what you mean by that's all you're saying. I'm saying, look, it's pretty clear. You can have a rule. You can put up an initiative next time that lets you vote in whatever primary you want to vote in that day. You can decide right when you walk in what primary you want to vote in. There are states that let you do that. If you want that in Montana, fine. But there are other parts of this initiative that have nothing to do with that are also going to go. And, the ads for it don't focus on these other parts of it, okay? And you have to go and you get this whole package. It's not like you can just vote for part of the initiative that's there. Why do you think it's good to have the part where the top 4 candidates move into the general election so that minorities will be more likely to win? Do you want a system so that people who are a minority will win elections?
I want a system that's fair. That's all I want.
And fairness is a system where minorities win elections?
For all the people in Montana who, like in the primary, like I said, who might want to vote for a Democrat for county commissioner.
Fine, just propose that rule then. Fine, just propose that rule. But this goes much beyond that. This goes much beyond that. Narrow it to what you say you want, but don't include this other part of it.
What's the other part of it that you're
The other part
about?
is what I keep on saying. It's that the top 4 candidates make it into the general election.
Well, then people really have to research, and they have to find the best person, and they don't just vote for the R.
But the point is if you have 3 R's and 1 Democrat, who are you going to elect? Now, maybe you think that's good. If it was the reverse.
People will do their research and find out that the other Republicans are crazy.
Okay, Sue, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. We're going to come right back. We have the phone lines are lighting up. We have Jeff, Rick, Kevin, and Skip all waiting to visit with Dr. John Lott. So we're going to come right back after this timeout.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talkback 72112. It's been a rollicking show so far today. An hour of open phones, and now an hour with Dr. John Lott with the Crime Prevention Research Center. Jeff has been waiting the longest. Jeff, good morning. You're on with Dr. Lott. Please go ahead.
Great to be on with the rollicking Dr. Lott again. Your comments about AI are spot on in terms of they're only as good as the data that backs them up. But there's problems that you didn't address with them that go far beyond just the fact that they're biased due to the data set that they're trained on. They actually have some AIs that have learned how to lie. There's a science AI that was supposed to work on a problem and stop after a certain amount of time. And it had not solved the problem at the end of that time, so it reset its timer and kept going. And they didn't know until they checked it.
Right.
And so how do you trust an AI like that? There's one Meta has a game playing an AI called Cicero. It's designed to play the board game Diplomacy, and it has learned to lie in order to get ahead.
Oh my God!
Another game player.
But yeah, there's a general problem with AIs called hallucinations, which basically, you can go and tell that you've made up false facts there, but they essentially just have what's a regression that goes and kind of predicts what words they should put in a particular order. And, when you just have kind of, a program that just has rules for what words you're going to put in, they don't have kind of the human knowledge there or, ability to go and say, that doesn't quite make sense. I have a friend who's a radio talk show host whose name ended up coming up. A reporter did a story on a lawsuit, and for some reason they put his name in and had kind of his background there as being the plaintiff in the lawsuit, or being the defendant in the lawsuit, sorry. And but he had nothing to do with it. But the computer there, and it's a very common problem that they'll just throw in facts and stuff like that don't belong in a particular story.
Yeah, I guess the hallucinating, I was going to bring that up too. That's a problem in and of itself. But this whole idea that it actively cheats,
well, I'm just saying, I think it's part of the same issue there, that it just makes stuff up. It doesn't kind of have the right guardrails to stop it from kind of changing the rules on itself or from just making facts up.
Yeah, I think we're in violent agreement, because my concern is that hallucinating is one thing, but the one that I was going to with was there's a test that's designed to detect and eliminate fast replicating versions of the AI. It has learned to play dead, so they don't think it replicates very fast. When it's actually replicating, it just cheats the humans who are monitoring it.
Right.
So, hallucinating one thing, but actively deceiving, that's the part that really concerns me.
Okay.
Is how do you know when you're deceived by an AI?
Right. I guess I'm just saying it makes things up, and it makes things up generally. And I don't think it views it as lying per se any more than it's lying with regard to the hallucinations. It's just that it's hard to put guardrails on what it does.
And Jeff, I don't think there's any way of putting the genie back in the bottle. Sorry, it's out and it's staying out.
Yeah, I just think it's going to prove to be a tougher nut to crack, and the trust in AI and the use of it is going to diminish greatly because
we'll see.
If I had a tool and I could only trust it to work, 20% of the time, I don't think I'm going to keep that tool. So,
Jeff, thanks for the call. As always, we appreciate it. Rick is waiting on the line. Rick, good morning. You're on with Dr. Lott. Go ahead, please, sir.
Hello, Dr. Lott.
Good morning.
I had a question and a comment. Didn't have a comment till I believe it was Sue came on. I find it kind of sweet that a Democrat would criticize a primary process after what we've seen RFK,
right.
RFK and Biden go through this year. But for a Democrat to criticize that process is sort of funny. But my question is, I occasionally listen to Lars Larson, and I've talked to him a few times, and he thinks a lot of you. And listen to Lars Larson, he's based out of Seattle. Right now, Seattle
Portland.
Portland?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, the Seattle area is just crime-ridden with juvenile crime, and it's just not petty crime. It's murders, it's assaults, but they can't get the legislature there. The conservatives cannot seem to find a solution to this other than, let them go.
Well, the conservatives don't have much power in Washington State. Either in King County or in the state legislature. They're in the minority, and of course the governor and the attorney general in Washington State are all liberal Democrats.
Yes. Well, my question to you is, where do the culture that they believe that rampant crime is okay? Where does that come from? You've traveled worldwide and everything. Where do you think that comes from? And could I hear this on my on the radio?
No, we'll leave you on while he answers. Thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I think it has to do with this notion of whether you think catching criminals and punishing them reduces crime. And there are a lot of people out there who don't think that that matters. To me, it's not rocket science. If you want to reduce crime, you have to make it riskier for criminals to commit crime, and that's higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences. You can also make it risky by allowing individuals to go and defend themselves with things like guns. But look, you look at a lot of these Soros district attorneys like Alvin Bragg or Kim Fox or Gaston in Los Angeles, and they, because of equity type concerns, say that the percentage of blacks that you try to convict shouldn't be any greater than their share of the population. And I say, look, I understand, you're concerned about, fairness and what have you, but who are the victims of the crimes? People tend to commit crimes against people who are just like themselves. So 90% of blacks are murdered by other blacks. People commit crimes in their own neighborhoods. Who lives in those neighborhoods? People who are similar race generally and socioeconomic status. And so while they'll go and say, we don't want to have punishment because, we're, a great percentage of the prison population may be minority, you have an even greater share of number of victims there who are the same race, same income status. And the stores that close down are generally more likely to be owned by the same type of people. Who do you think works in those stores? Who do you think shops in those stores? Who do you think owns homes in those areas whose property values are depressed because of the higher crime rate? They say they care about minorities, and that's the reason why they don't want to punish them. But the victims directly in terms of the crime and also indirectly in terms of the other consequences are the same minorities.
And with that, we're up against a break. It's a 1-minute timeout. Kevin, Skip, and Dave are all waiting to visit with you. We'll try to get as many calls in as we can with Dr. John Lott when we return right after this. Hey, welcome back to Talk Back. We have about, 7 minutes to go here on our time together with Dr. John Lott. Let's get right back to the phone and say good morning to Kevin. Kevin, good morning. You're on Talk Back with Dr. Lott. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. First of all, this CI-21 is a shenanigan. Look what happened up in Alaska with Lisa Murkowski. She lost the primary, but yet come back to win. Same situation. It's a bad deal. But my other thing to say is that anybody who votes for any initiative process, the initiative process is a poor representative way to represent law. It's mob rule at the best. I vote against it all the time. Anyone. I do not believe in the initiative process. It's a bad thing. The other thing I always find interesting when you listen to people talk about this, it's always the far right that are the problems, never the far left. It's just listening to people speak. But that's about all I got to say.
All right. Thanks for the call. Any comments before we get to our next call?
No.
All right. Let's move on to Skip. Skip, good morning. You're back. You're on with Dr. Lott. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Peter. And Dr. Lott, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
When Sue was on, I appreciated the way that you laid out just the regular building blocks about those initiatives. Personally, I can't imagine for two reasons why anybody would vote for I think there's 26 and 27, then 28 is about and so I can't imagine why anybody would want to vote for something, vote yes on something that might leave us in a voting system where less than half of the populace, how can I put it, that somebody that had less than 50% of the vote could win an office. And then also, when people read those initiatives, I would think not everybody has a chance to listen to a commentary like Talkback every day. But when they read things like that, if they're at all nebulous or ambiguous in their minds, or they're cloudy in any way, just vote no on stuff like that. Right. Because our future, it doesn't need to change that dramatically. And it just I don't, because some people are making a lot of noise. Right. But meanwhile, Don Kay was right yesterday, I think. He said, because the Republican platform or the Republican Party is saying vote no on all of them. I just ask people to look at the substance and understand why it's not good for the future to change the system that dramatically, especially if we're putting people in office with less than 50% of the vote. So thank you, sir, for what you do.
Thanks for the call.
Well, I mean, you look at the ads on TV, and they'll go and mention parts of these, saying, well, you can vote for a Republican or a Democrat or whoever you want to there. But they don't mention all the implications there. There are lots of parts of those initiatives that that they're not talking about in the ads that they're putting on.
All right, let's get, we have time for another caller. Dave, I think you might be wrapping things up. We only have about 4 minutes left. Go ahead, please.
Sure. I think poverty is a big factor in crime, too. But I was wondering about Arizona. From what I've heard, 92,000 Arizonans are registered to vote that shouldn't be registered. They
98,000.
98,000. Okay, but the Republican Party wants them counted because they're mostly Republicans.
No.
That's what I had heard.
No.
Is that true or not?
No, that's not correct. What happens is Arizona has a rule that you have to go and prove your citizenship before you're allowed to go and vote in state and local elections. There are 98,000 people who are registered to vote there who are not able to go and verify their citizenship. States can control who can vote in state and local elections, but federal rules, and so you want to go and separate out gun-free zones from other places. And when you do that, you in fact find that citizens legally carrying concealed handguns stopped over half of the active shooting attacks.
John, we are out of time. Thank you. CrimeResearch.org.
Right. Thank you very much.
And thank you for answering all these questions and talking with our listeners. We appreciate it.
I enjoy it. It's fun.
All right.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Nick, what's coming up on tomorrow's fabulous show, sir?
I'm actually gone tomorrow, so we're going to have a best of show from 8 to 10, but I will be back on Thursday. And then Thursday's show is, I believe, the Montana World Affairs Council with Bob and a special guest.
All right. So thank you. By the way, you guys have made it a great show today. Thank you. We appreciate it. The open phones and, of course, with Dr. Lott. Again, a big thank you to him as well. Get out and enjoy this absolutely spectacular, beautiful day. Enjoy what Western Montana has to offer. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with the best of. Bye-bye.